Westfield's really growing, actually a little more than I even realized. I've kept up with it throughout the years. I'm standing out here in front of Westfield High School right now, and in fact, I was at a wedding for a cousin of mine recently, just a few weeks ago, and the groom, strangely, is a cousin, or just coincidentally is a cousin of somebody that I used to teach with here. Now, he still teaches here, so we came in to Westfield about the same time in the 1990s, and I was there for 16 years, and he's still there. So he's pushing 30 years now, amazingly. So upper 20s, he's been there. And we got to talking about Westfield a little bit, because I talk about Westfield a lot with people and just how much it's growing. And there are a few people that I still keep in touch with that teach here. I haven't talked to this particular guy in a long time. And he said that, yeah, we're actually pushing about 3,000 kids in the high school now. And when I started at Westfield, in this building, I was one of the first, actually a teacher, along with some other teachers that were the first to teach in this building. And it doesn't really look from the outside a whole lot like it did back in the 90s. There were 600 something kids at that particular point in time. It is crazy to think that they're pushing 3,000 kids now. So my question was, of course, what have you heard as far as the ramblings about another high school? Because I think that there's room, and I think that they are procuring land, at least to build elementary schools, because they've done a bunch of those over the years. But what about the high school? So not that long ago, there was a huge project that was approved to extend the high school again off to the south over here and add about 40,000 square feet of space. Now that isn't actually going to break ground until a year or so from this video, and then it's going to be a couple years, of course, before it's finished. But that's going to allow them to get to about 4,000 kids at this particular location. So 4,000 kids, that's going to put Westfield up from right now, they're in the top 20 as far as the size of the high school in the state of Indiana. So Carmel's the biggest, and then you have some other Indianapolis schools like Ben Davis and Warren Central, Pike. Those are all pretty big high schools too, but you've got some other big ones around here as well, like Noblesville and Brownsburg. But of course, you can't forget Fishers, in both high schools in Fishers. You have Fishers High School and Hamilton Southeastern High School. So there's a lot that's still really in front of Westfield, but it's still in that 18th range or so, inside the top 20. But boy, if they get up to 4,000 or so, that's gonna shoot them up into that top 5. That's tremendous. I mean, it's still nowhere close to what Carmel is. Carmel is about 5,200 kids or so, and that's all in one school, or at least one campus in that same location. It's not two completely different campuses like you have in Fishers. At Fishers High School and then Hamilton Southeastern High School, they're separated by several miles. So Westfield, though, there's no plan right now in the foreseeable future. In fact, this expansion is to kick that can down the road a little bit of possibly having an additional high school. But why in the world is Westfield growing so much? Well, there's actually a lot of reasons why it's growing so much. For one, it has room to do so. It has phenomenal proximity to Carmel. It shares a border. So right here, this road that I'm walking along, if you just jump on 31, which is just off behind me, and go just to the south to 146th Street, that's the border of Westfield and Carmel right there. So it's extremely close. And then of course, Indianapolis is right there as well. US 31, with all the improvements that have been done over the years, you never stop going north and south on it. So you can move down that thing pretty fast and totally unobstructed. But there are other reasons other than just proximity and the space to grow, is that there's a lot of opportunity here for businesses, and there are some headquarters of businesses that have moved in here. And Westfield itself is investing. There's a construction truck. moving material to some other new place around here. The downtown area of Westfield is changing dramatically. You have Grand Park, which has been there for a lot of years at this point and attracts a lot of tourism from around the country, but a huge expansion of that has actually been announced. There's also a new park. It's a space-themed park, Grand Universe. The addition of that has been announced. I think it's 175,000 square feet, something like that, where it's like a space-themed amusement park. So that is going to be super unique, and it's going to attract a lot of people from other parts of the Indianapolis Metro and really around the country too. So there's a lot happening in Westfield, with Westfield reinvesting in itself to become, and I've said this in a lot of videos over the years, is that I think it's pretty clear that Westfield really wants to be and has its eyes on being a premier place to live. So while its growth rate has slowed down some, so we're not talking about 25–30% growth rates, anything like that anymore, but it's still growing. So again, with the high school here, they have their eyes set on being a school of 4,000 kids. They're still more than 1,000 kids away from being that, but in this past 4 years or so, Westfield has said that they've added about 1,700 kids, 1,700 students to the district as a whole. And so some of this renovation here has to be applied to some of the schools as well, like the middle school and Westfield Elementary School, which is just right here. It's one of the original elementary schools on the campus, and then there are a lot of them spread throughout Westfield. So they have to be renovated since they're a little bit older. They've already been renovated some whenever one of the buildings over here just off to my south actually was the old high school, and when they built this building here, that changed. They've got an intermediate school, they've got a middle school, they've got an elementary school, all right here on this campus, but it wasn't enough, of course, to house every single kid that was in Westfield. So a new elementary school was built, another new elementary school was built, another new elementary school was built, and we've got, obviously, growing numbers. So the high school is going to be at the end of all of those expansions that you're seeing in numbers at the entry levels, like those elementary schools. They have to go somewhere. They will go somewhere. So the high school here is preparing for that. But as you get further north, and especially further to the west, there's a lot more room to grow. So Westfield, it is absolutely conceivable that it will likely be as big as Fishers and Carmel one day. So right now it's pushing about 60,000 people, but in 20 years, Fishers and Carmel, they're really not going to grow a whole lot more than what they are right now. Carmel is essentially out of room, so they might add a few thousand people, let's say. Fishers, a few thousand more than that, because there's still a little bit of room to expand out to the east. And so if you're looking at new construction, stuff like that, that's where you're going to find most of your options. But if you're looking for new construction, and that's actually why I'm in Westfield today, because I've got a pre-drywall meeting with a client at a home in Westfield, so just a little bit west of here, where we go in and take a look at everything on the interior before they put the drywall in, because it's the last chance you get to see all of that until they put the walls up. We don't have a lot of that in Carmel. We don't have a lot of that in quite a few other places around Indy. And inside Indianapolis itself, there's new construction, but not like there is here in Westfield. So over the years, you're going to see this. If you have your eyes on Westfield, it's no longer the ground floor. The ground floor was a long time ago. When I first started teaching here at Westfield in the 90s, I told you there's 600 something kids at the high school. Well, at that point, there might have been 10,000 or so people, actually less than 10,000 people in all of Westfield. Now here we are, this video is being shot in 2025, and you're pushing 60,000 people. That's an incredible growth rate. So again, that's gonna slow down, but the growth rate is still gonna be above average for what you would actually have, I would say, anywhere around Indianapolis and the whole metro, and maybe even a lot of places that you're comparing to as far as growth rates go in the entire country. And you will find plenty of people who are quite happy about the growth, and of course there's always people that aren't happy with the growth. But the fact is that the population is growing and people need and want some place to live. They want to be in a place that is safe. They want to be in a place that is clean. They want to be in a place that is desirable. They want to be in a place where you have other families. You want to be in a place that has highly rated schools. So even with the growth rate here of Westfield, they still have their head on very, very straight in handling the growth that they've seen now over the decades. So Westfield's one of those places that you're gonna find a lot of new, just about everything. Most of Westfield, I've said this over and over in videos in the past, and I'll tell people this all the time, is that most of Westfield, the majority of Westfield, is less than 20 years old. You can certainly find some homes in here or some structures, buildings, things like that have been here since the 60s, 70s, 80s, and definitely the 90s. But actually, if you started counting those up, it's a really small number. But it is here because Westfield, of course, was around then and it just wasn't terribly populated. So most of Westfield is under 20 years old. That should not be surprising to people. Some people want to be a part of that. Some people want to be in a place that I wouldn't say is more established, because Westfield's still established, but you have a larger area that is well established and been around for quite a while. But if you do like that new, and if you like to be in a community that is growing and being a part of that growth, Westfield could be a great place for you. If you have kids that are going into elementary now, you just need to, of course, know that Westfield High School at this point, when they're very young, when they're 6 and 7 and 8 years old, just getting into elementary school, it could look really different in the next 10 years or so, and it could be much larger than what it is now. And it's already quite large. But if you're looking across the whole northern part of Indianapolis, if you're looking on the west side of Indianapolis, like with Brownsburg, Avon, Plainfield, they're all really big. Fishers is big, like I said, Carmel is huge, Noblesville's big. And then if you go to the east side, that's where you can get into some slightly smaller schools, like with New Palestine, with Greenfield Central, with Mount Vernon. But they're gonna be growing too. They're just a little further behind than what you see here in Westfield. But man, this place here, I have a lot of memories in this building, a lot of really good memories in this building. And honestly, it's kind of neat to see the growth. I'm not opposed to it at all. I've always felt like it was a great place, and I really miss a lot about this place. So if you have questions about Westfield at all, its growth, whether it could be a fit for you or not, or even how to get to know Westfield a little bit better, we actually have our app. It's out now, completely ready to go for people to use, that you can use to explore places like Westfield or Carmel, Fishers, Greenfield, Greenwood. I mean, you name it, it's in there. And it'll help put together an itinerary for you on a visit. And you could actually even use it without visiting, just to get to know some of these cities and towns a little bit better and develop your own preferences and impressions about some of these places. Because you can watch these videos all day, and that's certainly gonna help just with information, but you need to develop your favorites and places that you really like, and of course some of the places that you don't really like or don't prefer. It can help you know what to look for to figure those things out. So reach out if you have questions about anything like that or Westfield, and we'll catch you in the next one.